I really love this guy. First off, I think his topic today about purpose is his whole purpose in life is to teach, inspire, educate people, and he's overcome his own life obstacles. he faces life head on, and he's been an instructor in massage. He's a teacher. He's been teaching people ever since he probably came out of the womb, I'm guessing. But he's very inspirational, and today he's going to be talking about your life purpose. So please give Joshua Schumelda a nice big hand.
And yes, first of all, I want to apologize for anybody who read it incorrectly. There will be no large aquatic mammals. It's life on purpose, not life on porpoise. Okay? So I'm sorry if you read it wrong, but here we are today, life on purpose. That was for Phil. So life on purpose. When I think of purpose and people that are really living on purpose and not just kind of like a pinball bouncing from one experience to the next, is I think of heroes. So when you think of a hero, what's a hero that you guys think of? Somebody throw one out. Superman. There's a superhero. God's a hero. What are some who?
Gandhi.
Gandhi's a hero. Why was he a hero?
He showed by example.
There you go. I like that. Show by example. It's like I almost got a plug in here, right? So yeah, we show by example. These are people who are not living through theory. They're living through practice, right? And there's tons of stories of these heroes. There was one hero who had to get kicked out of his tribe, and he had to go walk in a desert for 40 days and 40 nights before he found out who he was. You guys know that story? Who was that?
Jesus.
There you go. And then there's other stories, like there was one time another one about a kid who grew up without knowing his dad. And then later on got a crush on a girl who he found out later on was his sister. And then much later on, he actually got his arm cut off by his own father. Who knows that one? Luke Skywalker, you guys. Did this really happen? So all time, all history, whether it's from way in ancient days or modern times, we're constantly looking at this idea of what a hero is. And heroes are people who live on purpose. So what's your purpose? What are you here for? Because it wasn't an accident. You are the moment that your mom and dad had that chance encounter. If you've ever felt like you're a loser or you don't make it in this world, please keep in mind that you are the winner. You are the one who made it. Okay? So there is no accident to you being here. You are here on purpose. It's just that there's so many other beliefs and static that are a part of our society that have probably taught you away from that idea that you're here on purpose. So, as Don was saying, I've been a teacher for a long, long time. I was a preschool teacher way back in the 90s for a couple years, and then I became a college instructor for 17 years. Last week, for 5 days, I was a substitute teacher for middle school kids. Nice. And all of my knowledge of biology and chemistry and puberty really helped. Because I knew that I was walking into insanity.
I'm impressed you still have hair. And
right, yeah. I was ready for it. And so, whether you know what your purpose is or not, and chances are you probably don't, because we don't really think about that. That's not a part of our society. That's not a part of our everyday conversation. We're too busy talking about elephants and asses and masks and syringes. So we don't have enough time to talk about the things that are most important, things that actually have some purpose to them, right? And so maybe you don't know, because when I do a discussion, and I did it with the middle school kids, I do it with college kids, and usually in a group of 20 to 30 people, If one knows what their purpose is, their calling, or what they call your dharma, well, that's the one or two. Most people don't know. It's because they don't think about it. So what's your purpose? Why are you here on earth breathing with the rest of us? And so you might not know what it is. That's okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at something that would be more like a general purpose that all human beings can kind of agree with. That might be, how would you like sustainable happiness? Okay? If you don't know what your calling is, let's start with that. Let's find ways to become sustainably happy. And I'm not talking about, feeling good one day or going out and buying a new car or getting a new lover and a new job, because that does make you happy. What it does is it releases chemicals in your body like dopamine and serotonin and endorphins, and that'll help you feel good. But then when those are gone, or when they're taken away, or after a short period of time when those don't excite you anymore, what's going to make you happy? Well, that's what purpose does. Purpose goes along with passion. It's an authentication process. And so when you have purpose, you can find ways to become sustainably happy. And other than sustainable happiness, well, let's just say that even before that, because that might be too much for some people to think about. Wouldn't it be nice just to have confidence in what you do and what you say without having to always second guess yourself? Wouldn't it be nice that when you screw up and you fall on your face, that you don't have to go through that miserable process of shame and guilt that a lot of us go through whenever we screw up? Well, that's a byproduct of not really knowing how to reorientate ourselves. Intrinsically, we have an ability to self-right ourselves, and wouldn't it be great if after every single time you got knocked down, you had the ability to self-right and pick yourself back up, to where you're never, ever knocked out? Well, that's what this is going to help bring you to. So, one of the key things that we're not given as we're growing up is the ability to see right from wrong. We might understand what right and wrong is, and we might be told positionally that's right for you and that's wrong for you, but that's where a lot of times people get arrested in their development. They're listening to everything on the outside, and because of that, like we were talking about in the beginning, they don't really get to hear that inner voice. Well, the first, most foundational principle that we have to understand in order to achieve the sustainable happiness, in order to live on purpose, is to understand duality itself. And before we start to look into duality, the up, the down, the left, the right, the happy, the sad, let's look at things like dependence. Because really, the big reason that I'm here is that the world is counting on you. No pressure, but when you look at how this world is today, it's not the people out there that are creating the world, it's the people right here that's creating the world. It's the person to the left of you, it's the person to the right of you that's creating this world. They're creating this world with their thoughts, with their actions, with their words. We know this story until it begins habits, and until that's the way that we are. And so we need to take a real good look at interdependence, independence, and understand what those are, because if we don't really understand our own independence and where we fit in with the rest of the world, we're going to fall into the abomination called codependence. Okay? And I'm one of those kind of people that I'm in this field because I love people. And I'm in this field because I can't stand people. It's like I figured this is something that I can do because of the fact that I don't want a world, I don't choose to be in a world that is codependent. The best description, the best visualization that you can think of a bunch of people that are dependent or codependent is that if you tie two birds together, though they have four wings, they cannot fly. Okay? So we have to be free. We have to be individual. We have to know who we are away from everyone else. And we also need to know how we fit in the world in way of relationship. Relationship is what it's all about. As a matter of fact, the whole world is because of these two primordial concepts of independence and interdependence. They're kind of the bookends of what exists. They're the yin and the yang, right? They are the full scope of duality. Either we are a part of something and we're unified, like John Lennon and Bob Marley and Jesus Christ talk about. We're all one, which is that interdependence, and we'll talk a little more about that. Or we are our singular individual self, the independence. And it's a really, really neat way that this works, because as you guys are aware, you're gods and goddesses sitting here, right? You are spiritual beings in a physical body, right? You're not a physical body with a spirit. You are divinity sitting here, right? And so understanding how divine we are, we can start to kind of unpack this concept of duality and start to use it as a tool and a skill. It's really, really important. Because of the fact that it is this two-scope thing, we can basically look at duality as being a tool, both in a way that is reductive. If you know what's right and wrong, you're going to be able to make choices for yourself, right? So in one way, that's what duality is. Out of everything you can pick, you know what you will have in your life because you love it and it's enjoyable and it's great and it makes you feel happy. And you also know what you won't have in your life because it sucks, right? It doesn't feel good. It exhausts you. You find no pleasure in it. So this is your will haves and your won't haves. The way that this system is developed is initially we get everything in our first chakra, and that's our root chakra, where we're downloaded with all of this knowledge from our culture, our tribe, right? And always keep in mind, as we've talked about before, culture is the same as like a culture of bacteria, right? In so many ways. And culture itself is just a cult you are on earth level. If you ever take that word culture apart, right? It's just another cult, right? So in any which way, this culture that we're all kind of sitting and stewing in has taught us a lot of things. And that's what we gain and cultivate in that first chakra. But then from that first chakra, we bring it up into our second chakra, which is all about relationship. All about how we connect with one another. And in that process, what we do is we take everything that we've learned from our family, our tribe, and then we check it out. We play with it. As a matter of fact, that's what we're doing here on planet Earth, is we're just playing. This is a big, big sandbox, a cosmic sandbox. And the way it really works is we are one unified force. I like Star Trek, so I like to think that what we are is we are this entity that is etheric. So we cannot, by what we are at that state, experience anything. We can't experience happiness. We can't experience greed. We can't experience sadness. None of that can be experienced because we're too etheric, right? But then what happens is we decide together, well, let's go down on this little plane, this little planet, because we are ETs, right? So we go down to a planet of ETs, right? So we're on this planet now, and we make a choice, and this is where the love comes in, is this choice is we decide to come in together into these teeny tiny mortal bodies that have all of that divine power of co-creativity, but it's in a really small bottle. So it's contained. It's all there. Just like if you were to take a drop of the ocean, everything that's in that ocean is in that drop of water. You are, as Carl Sagan has spoken of, you are the star stuff, right? So start acting like it. You are gods and goddesses. You are co-creators. And if you don't understand your own will-haves and won't-haves through that process of cultivation, well, then it's going to be used against you. Okay? So, duality in one part, and we're going to talk here in a minute of how it's used against you, because of course it's used against you in two ways. But the other way that we use duality is not only in the reductive, but we also use it in the expansive. We use it exponentially. Because when you understand what is up and what is down, you can start to experience that everything is a spectrum. Everything from the top of the mountain down to the valley is a spectrum of up and a spectrum of down. This is where mastery comes into play, because now you're not restricted by just up and just down. You've got this whole spectrum to play with. And so in that way, you don't come to a decision and say, do I do this or do I do that? You say, these are the resources I have available to me. What can I co-create with this? It's not any sort of a restriction. You're never forced into any idea. There's never any sort of control, because that's what real co-creation is. It's free. And so duality, again, can either be used to help you go to A or B. It can be very reductive, and that's great. Or it can actually help you unpack and figure out many, many more options. Because it goes in either way. It's a spiral, right? You can either bring it down to the smallest microscopic idea of what your problem is, or you can expand that out to a million possibilities. And so we have to become skillful in this, because if we're not, this same concept can be used against us, both from external forces and, of course, also from internal forces. So, outside, there are no real attacks. Okay, now of course I'm not talking about like a physical attack. That's one thing. But if somebody's being mean to you, or if you're upset about how politics are, or anything like that, that's not the real bad guy. Okay. But because of the fact that we've been forced to believe that the world is an outside-inside process, we believe it. And so we buy into fear, and we buy into shame, and we buy into guilt. And the way this happens is that if you don't know how to use the yin and the yang as a skill and a tool, then they're going to use it against you to separate. Now, who's heard, what is the only affliction, you spiritual beings, you? You guys ever heard that one? No.
Separation.
There you go. Thanks, Gandalf. Separation is the only affliction. Now let's unpack that, because if we are all one, and then we think that we're separate, that person's wrong and I'm right, you see where the problem comes into play? Right there. When you think that you're right and they're wrong, that's separation. That creates affliction. And you can see that in anywhere. They use it against you in all kinds of nefarious ways if you're not aware, because what they can do is on TV and on the radio, they'll tell you exactly how to feel. Against your own best divinity, they can take away all your co-creation ability, because they'll tell you that you're ugly. That you need to buy all this makeup, and that you need to get your facelift. And they'll tell you that you need to buy more things even when you have everything that you need.
Right?
Amen.
So mind your wants, because someone wants your mind, right? I can't take credit for that. That's George Clinton. And you guys will have to look up who that is. Anybody know George Clinton? Probably not. You know George Clinton? Parliament Funkadelic. so
genre so much, but
yeah, not quite Buddha, but yeah, mind your wants, because someone wants your mind. So these nefarious elements, which are just a part of the play, okay? like Shakespeare said, we are all actors and actresses, and the world is a play, right?
Stage.
The stage, right? And so they're going to be able to use this process of separation, and you've been fed into it your whole life. As I've talked about in the past, they use separation in the schoolyards with the yo mama jokes. You know, that's the first way how to separate yourself. And then they teach you all about competition. Sports is the next way to separate yourself. And then the politics, which you guys have all heard me talk about.
Politics.
The word politics is just a bunch of blood-sucking parasites. See that, right? The politics, okay? And in theology, they bring you to this state that actually has you believing that your God is better than another God, right? All along talking about how we're all one. Okay? So there's a design that is going on. There is a design to grab your attention. There is a design that has you keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, we didn't have much.
It's all reductive. It's all an expression of teaching you how to be attracted by shiny objects outside of yourself. Now, I don't know who this force is. It really doesn't matter. It's, you know, it's the Sith. It's, you know, it's whatever you want to call it, you know.
The ego.
The ego. Well, and the ego, you know, we'll talk about the ego here in a second if we have time, because I would actually say the ego is just a tool as well. You know, it's a barometer. You know, it really helps us recognize where we're at in a situation. But they teach us that we should go away from the ego, right? As a little side note, I actually think that Jesus Christ was actually the most egotistical person, but his was the refinement of the ego. Because you see, at first what our ego does is says, these are my roots. You know, the ego first of all says, well, this is the way I've always done it. This is the way that I was raised. That's where ignorance and bigotry is in that first chakra. And then the ego moves through and the ego says, this is mine and this is yours. And I'm going to make sure I take care of mine and you take care of yours. And then when we cultivate that in the third chakra, which is confirmation, that's willpower. That's our will haves and our won't haves. And you see, we've cultivated that genuinely because we've taken what we were taught, we've tested it out for ourselves in our second chakra, and now in our third chakra where fire is, that's our willpower, our will haves and won't haves. We know where we sit in way of duality. This is what I choose. It's not what I want anymore. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to mature this idea of the ego into choice. Because what you can do with that is once you take that ego in the third chakra and we move it up into the fourth chakra, well, this is the language of Christ, that Christ consciousness. With that Christ consciousness, what the ego does is it says it is so important, not just about what I have, but what everybody around me has. So, if there's not enough fish or loaves, let me just manifest it. Oh, you just got water and you need some wine?
No problem.
Let me manifest it. That's what that movement of the ego can do if we bring that up into the fourth chakra, because we find a way. We understand how important that interdependence is. That's where we catch up. And that's why it's positioned right where it is. Look, or excuse me, fourth chakra. It's right in between heaven and earth, right? That's the key right there. Is that when you set your ego free, when you stop looking at the world from an outside-in approach, and you start going from an inside-out approach, you start to look for what is it that we need, what resources do I create, and let me just manifest it. So the ego is a great tool. It's just that most people, their development is arrested in the first, second, or third stage. So duality is one of the most important foundational skills and tools that we have at getting through this spiritual maturity. So let's explore a few areas of duality while we're here. First of all, let's take a look at and or. Okay? You can be both. So much of our world is an or. Okay? Red or blue, right? Elephant or ass, right? Black or white, okay? But what about and?
I like that.
If you're only looking for the or, your mind is going to be too busy to look for the and. And is so important because then you're going to start to unlock that power of duality and start to look for more options. You know, you're not just going to find a plan C and a D, but an E, F, G. Okay, that's what and does. Now I'll throw in there for those that haven't been here yet, there's a really great mantra that I always like to talk about when I talk about and it's a really good way to make sure that you have a good use of your voice in way of not wasting it. There's a good mantra that I have that if it is not kind and necessary and true, I STFU. Anybody remember that one? You guys know what STFU means? No? Yeah. Shut the F up. My uncle taught me the STFU when I was about 14, man. It saved me so much headaches, especially when I went through a divorce. And then my Buddhist stepsister taught me if it's not kind and necessary and true, don't say it. The and is really important. Because think about how many times and how many ways you can slip up if you go with the or. You know, how many times is something, you know, you can say something kind, but it's not really necessary. Or something that's really true and really necessary to say, but not kind. So when you explore and,
Repeat that again.
you gotta be kind
necessary.
and necessary and true, or ISTFU. So really what this does, understanding the and the or, this is all going to help you as far as your energy resource management. And you're not going to become enlightened by a low frequency. You're not going to become enlightened by, you know, always being stressed out and about keep on falling on your own sword. So when we start to really explore the and the or, it changes everything. It's not that you'll never use or. That's silly. That's like, again, saying that you're going to ever find a mountain that only has a mountain top and no valley. In Chinese medicine, we say that these mutually arise. They're interdependent. They don't exist without one another. Okay? And that's one of the 5 principles of duality that we'll start to look at. We're not gonna really go into each one of them, but interdependence is really one of the most important principle understandings of this concept of duality. This tool that you guys are going to start to play with is that the only way that up exists is because of down. The only way that you know happiness is because of sadness.
Yeah.
So if you want to go ahead and, you know, do a little practice of suffering and misery, take a magnet, cut it in half, and just keep cutting it in half, and just do what you can to cut it down to only a north side, or only a south side. Now, those of you that are chuckling understand that that's impossible. Anytime you cut a magnet, cut it twice, now you've got 2 magnets that each have their north and south pole. It's infinitely divisible, okay? You will never, ever, ever find a day without a night. They make each other up, okay? So interdependence, so quit trying to do that. There's so many people that I see all the time doing whatever they can to make something that really sucks look bad. Well, what that is that's our saboteur using duality against us. And we'll get to that in a minute. But right now we're still talking about those outside forces that are going to use this against us. Because those outside forces use duality to separate us. To have you thinking that you can only have it one way. Oh, you want to be a teacher? Well, that means that you're going to have to go through a very lengthy process of going to school and learning how to teach people. I didn't like how that sounded. So I didn't do it. I had a lot more choices. So, I've taught almost every age conceivable. I'll have 1st through 5th grade, and then I'll have my entire educational bingo card.
Love
And
it.
I've never taken the orthodox ways of doing it. It's just that I found other ways to do it because I wanted to do it. I had those choices expanded to me exponentially because I recognized the rest of the world was attempting to be reductive. So you can use duality as like this barometer as well. You can check in with yourself. So interdependence is one of them. Opposition, as we've talked about, they are completely opposite to each other. That's how you can know what they are. Heaviness is only heavy because it is relatively heavier than light. Okay, that's how it goes. So they're in opposition. So opposition, interdependence, infinite divisibility, consume support. Consume support, basically, and we're not going to talk too much about this one, it's just that day turns into night. You can only go so far west until eventually you're headed back around east, right? So the lesson that we can kind of have in this one, and we'll leave it here, is that nothing sucks forever. One of my favorite poems, Rudyard Kipling, If. Some of you probably know it. If not, make sure you read If. It talks about triumph and disaster, the two imposters that they are, okay? Nothing is really a triumph, nothing is really a disaster unless you perceive it as such. Mm-hmm. You have that choice, and we're going to be getting to choice here in a minute. So, if you don't know how to use it as a skill, the bad guys are going to take all your money from you. I mean, that's kind of essentially how it is. They're going to have you buy into all kinds of things, and not just your money, but your time and your resources. If you believe that you need to stand in line to wait for something, then you might not recognize that with all the technology these days, you can register online and not have to deal with any of those people. So you got to become more aware. And if you're so fixated on what they tell you, then you're never going to explore those other ideas. So you got to shake that loose. And the only way that we can do that is if we really, really start to play with these tools in our everyday life. And so that's one way that the outside will use duality against us. But that's nothing compared to how we use it against ourselves. If we don't understand our own will haves and won't haves, what this is confirmation. So in the 7 Catholic sacraments, this is our confirmation. We are confirmed. We know who we are. The neat thing about confirmation is that once you have confirmation, it not only becomes your compass during trials and tribulation. If you have confirmation, you know where you need to go. In any situation, if it's a burning building and you know where the exit is, you have a confirmation as to where to go. If you have explored these ideas in your own mind, how I feel about this, how I feel about that, not how does the world feel about me doing this? How do I feel about me doing this? When we start to explore that, now we're going to start to unpack the next idea of unlocking our own psyche, becoming a master of our own minds, as much as we can be. Now, a little note to that. If you are attempting to get rid of suffering, if you are trying to get rid of your suffering, that's a fool's errand. Because what happens is that the more you try to get rid of your suffering, the motivation actually ruins the project. Because you're so fixated on this concept of suffering, right? Okay, so that's a little side thing there. Now, our own mind has this really great way of sabotaging us with this concept that we were just talking about, and that's try. Okay? Try. I tried it.
Try
I
not.
tried so hard.
Try
Exactly.
not.
Just like Yoda told us, right? And some Star Wars fans, try not. Do or do not.
Or do not.
There is no try, right? And there really isn't. I mean, we've all heard the expression, trying makes perfect. Practice makes perfect, right? See? So it's in our language. Get rid of try, get rid of want. That's the best place that we can explore all these tools of psychology is with language.
Yep.
And so in our own language, get rid of trying. Because when you try and you fail, it's a lot quicker for you to give it up. With practice, you know practice is going to require perseverance. Things may become difficult, but that's why we continue to practice them and they get better, they get easier.
Yep.
And so this being a process of practice, every single time that you are faced with an experience that's going to lead you to having to come up with a solution, think, is this an and or an or? Also, think to yourself, am I thinking through abundance or scarcity? A lot of what we do, a lot of the way we spend our money, a lot of the way we spend our resources is because we're worried we're not going to have enough. Gods and goddesses, what was it that was needed to move a mountain?
A mustard seed.
A mustard seed, okay? And who's going to feed and clothe you? You are, divinity, it's there, okay? So this should not just be theory, okay? And that's the next one. Is your life a theory? Do you buy a bunch of crystals? Do you sniff a bunch of oils? Do you read a bunch of books every single morning? Or are you living the practice of what you talk about and what you read about? Are you afraid about what's going on outside there? Because if so, then you're probably not putting your theory into enough practice, because there's nothing to be afraid of. So, inside or outside, everything that you experience, is it happening on the inside or the outside? Well, of course, both. But if you are focused on what's going on in the outside, you're never going to have enough time and energy to process what's going on the inside. So keeping in mind that in its reductive way, yin and yang are going to help you come to a center and help you figure out a problem. In its exponential way, as it goes out to both ends, it actually creates a counterbalance that creates harmony. That's the other way that we can look at yin and yang. If you understand that everything is a movement, everything is a rhythm, just like the tides of an ocean. One of the programs that they're going to have you bought into is that you're not doing enough. You're not motivated. You're not producing enough. You don't have enough money. Oh my God, the inflation. Oh my God, the gas prices. You're going to be so fixated on that stuff. You're not going to have any time to keep yourself at peace, right? So understand that in your mind, what's playing out is this same sort of battle of yin and yang. And there are 4 master characters that are waiting at any given second to kind of focus your attention in a particular way. One of the characters, and we all share these, is going to be the saboteur, okay? And what the saboteur does is it's going to tell you, for example, oh, it's so late, and I know that you have a few errands that you need to run before tomorrow morning, but you're not going to do that. You're going to do those in the morning, because you're going to wake up a little early in the morning. And you end up sabotaging yourself because something happens in the morning. But the real key is you knew all that. You knew that the night before when you made the decision to listen to the saboteur tell you, you really deserve to go to bed early. When you know that you should just get stuff done. So the saboteur is always there. The saboteur is going to tell you, no, you shouldn't go and do that fun stuff because gas is too expensive. Okay? It's going to sabotage your plans. It's also going to then call apart the next one, and that's going to be the victim. And what the victim does is it's already ripe and ready, because remember, you've been brought up in a culture that's always going to help you find whose problem it is. Who can I blame? And that's the language of the victim. So if you don't understand your own confirmation, if you don't understand your own willpower, your own will haves and won't haves, then you're going to be real quick to find out whose fault is it that I'm not happy? Because you've been led to believe it's somebody outside of you. So you're not a victim of circumstance. You are a god or a goddess. It's just that you have not maybe put enough of your theory into practice. And then the next one is going to be the child. I love the child because that's the best and the easiest one. That's the one that, as a teacher, the quickest way that you would always be able to hear the child is the person that says, I'm an adult and I can do what I want. I don't have to wear this dress code because I'm an adult. Of course, it's the most childish thing I've ever heard. And so be careful. Listen to your language, because that is a key that you are not operating at your best senses, is when these archetypes, they call them, when these master programs are running and you say to yourself, I can do whatever I want because I'm an adult. No. In order to maintain that equilibrium, that balance, that smooth motion in life, you gotta have alignment. I mean, that's what alignment creates. It creates that smooth ride. If the alignment on your car is a little off, that's going to ride on one of the wheels, which is going to mess up the tire, which is going to mess up the whole ride, and it's going to be rocky. So what you can expect is that if you have a rocky road in life right now, that's the proof that your process is not working for you. That's it. Now, it could be that the saboteur is saying, oh, no, it's not you. And then the victim says, yeah, it's someone else. And then the child says, yeah, that's right, because you're an adult. And then finally, the last one that's going to come in is the prostitute.
Oh, no.
Now,
Not her.
we all, whether we like to admit it or not, have worked with the prostitute archetype. Now, the prostitute is not just one definition, okay? And the one that is on the street corner is not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But if you look it up, the word prostitute, to prostitute ourselves, is to do anything that is below ourselves. To use our skills, to use our experience, to use our service in a place or in a way that is not worthy to us. That's prostituting ourselves. So if you've ever been in a relationship that's toxic, there you go. If you've ever been in a job that you hate, if you're going to wake up miserably, going to some place and using up all your energy so that somebody else can become rich and not have to go to work, that's going to become very resentful eventually, okay? You can't escape that. And so if you've worked in a place that's below your mean and below your worth, that's just simply because you've not come to your own confirmation. You've not worked with it enough. And so the ones on the outside are really not that bad at all, because you can stop listening to people. You can turn off the TV. You can stop listening to commercials. You can do your own research, your own due diligence. So that's the easy one. The ones that are talking on the inside, those are the ones that you really got to watch out for. Mm-hmm. So the real thing is that when we look at our life being a life on purpose, and if you don't know your calling, that meaning that you're looking for sustainable happiness and to be confident and to move through life with some grace, some ease, some enjoyment, then we're going to take a look at every single move and experience we take within our own will haves and won't haves. Is this what I choose to be doing, or is this what's been chosen upon me? If you think that there's no way out, I'm going to leave you my phone number, because that's what I do. I'm like an obstacle destroyer. As a matter of fact, I think that the greatest majority of people that stop coming to see me is because they recognize how effective I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, congratulations. You bet.
And so, what it all comes down to, after we start to play with duality, is my favorite language of love. And you've heard of the 5 languages of love. I would be very surprised. There might, maybe, who knows, maybe 1 or 2 people haven't read that book in here, and possibly everybody. Has anybody not heard of that book? I don't want to be that person. It's a great book. I never read it, but I read the back of it. And I know that there's 5.
Thank you.
You don't have to read a lot of books if you get the gist. Honestly, right?
That's right.
It's the truth. Think about how much more time you're going to save by not having to read the whole friggin' book if you can get the gist.
Thank you.
So you got 5 languages of love. I don't even remember what they all are. I know that if I got into a relationship, I'd go review them. That's what they're there for. Geniuses don't know everything. They know where to find it.
All right. Good job.
So you got 5 languages of love. Those resonate with some people, not with others. I'm a massage therapist, and I have been since I was I started my training when I was 13. And so to me, that physical touch is the one that I resonate with. Gifts never was a thing because I buy my own stuff, and usually I'm so picky that somebody bought me a gift, it'd be the wrong thing anyway. So you resonate with some, not the others, but all of us, every human being at their core. I say at their core because you got to remember there's so much disorganized programming going on inside of people that the majority of the time, 95% of the time, people don't have a clue as to what they're doing. It's so automatic. It's so subconscious in their programming. All the things we do, from brushing our hair, to how we put on clothes, to how we talk to people, it's all automatic. And so what we need to do is bring that conscious effort back to this land of choice, because that is the ultimate language of love. There is nothing more loving that we can do for each other. There's nothing more loving that we can do for our earth. There's nothing more loving that we can do for ourselves than give choice. Think about how it feels when somebody tells you, you can't think that way, or you're wrong for believing that. I know what I'm talking about, and you are wrong. Well, that's the quickest way to separation.
Yeah.
And again, if affliction is the true separation, then the ultimate cure is choice and opportunity. Opportunity to let each other grow and evolve with love and support, and not with judgment and control. And so it's very, very, very superficial, really, when you think about what we can do for each other compared to what we can do for ourselves. Now, it's great that we can give each other choice. That's again, a very loving thing to do. But man, when we give our own selves choice, our own selves options, that's when we authenticate our divinity. That's when we step into the role of co-creator and say, I have choice. No matter what the circumstance, no matter if I'm faced with a trial, a tribulation, I know that I have choice. And your choice is your voice, right? And we all know what is in the middle of choice and voice.
Voice?
Oh, I see.
Oh, I
So yes, please. As we move out today, and I have no idea where the time, where's the time anyways? How much more? How am I? About 5? Perfect. That's almost exactly where I want.
Oh, what did you say, Josh? Choice gives voice?
Our choice is our voice, and our voice is our choice.
Okay, choice is our voice.
Oh, I see.
Oh, I see. So yes, we need more choice. We need to really stop bickering. If I could really, if I've been at all concerned, even in the slightest bit, it was how much energy these little middle schoolers wasted on each other, just bickering and fighting. And it's only just a microscope of what their parents do and what their parents' society is doing. And again, we can't blame them. We are them. So quit theorizing about this stuff. Knock it off. Put this stuff into purpose. Live this. Don't just talk it. Don't just think it. When you are afraid of something, you have 8 lenses that you can put that fear in front of. As a matter of fact, there's really only 3 flavors that we're going to get into. It's going to be essentially worry and anxiety. That's one of them. Anger and frustration. That's another one. Sadness and depression. In Ayurveda, that's the Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Okay? And Winnie the Pooh, that's Piglet, the Wise Owl, and Eeyore. Okay? And so when we're dealing with any of those emotions, instead of listening to the victim and the saboteur and the child and the prostitute making everything okay, and yeah, he beats me, but I got a home to live in, and yeah, the job sucks, but at least I can pay my bills. Instead of that, I want you to flip the feeling into yourself. And I want you to ask yourself, first of all, am I sabotaging myself somewhere? Am I acting like a child? Am I prostituting myself? Should I be in someplace else? If something sucks, then you should leave. And then finally, am I being a victim of circumstance? The other 4 lenses, I'm sure you guys might have heard of a book called The 4 Agreements.
Yeah.
Another one that's kind of like, our little Adam Bibles or whatever. I mean, it's a great book because, you could go with the 10 Commandments and, there's the Tibetan Book of the Dead and they got the 10. And then also in Ayurveda, they also do it in 10s. They got the 5 yamas and they got the 5 niyamas. Or you can do 4. And the 4 is, have I been impeccable with my word? Are you poisoning the world with your words? And have you done what you say you're gonna do? That's being impeccable. Have you taken things personally? Anything that you feel coming from somebody else has so little to do with you, possibly nothing. But you chose to allow that feeling to go inside you and affect you in a negative way. Okay, so don't take things personal when somebody is a real douchebag against you. It's their own douchebaggery, okay? Then the next one is be impeccable, don't take things personally, never assume. That's like one of the easiest ones because all you have to do to never assume is just always ask lots of great questions, communicate. And then the last one is always do your best. That's such a nice one because that really kind of lets the little thing off the pressure there by saying that when you really understand always doing your best, you get to stay away from the harm of underachieving. Those people who all of a sudden get an A on a paper unexpectedly and say to themselves, this is really cool, I could fail the next test and still get a C. Okay? Those are the underachievers. Or you got those other people that are just having a tough time in life, they really are dealing with like a country western album, their car breaks down, they lose their wife, and they take a test and they get a B+ on it, and then they beat themselves up over it. That creates psychological harm.
No, it's never enough.
Never. And so when you know what your best is, you've got your own equilibrium. And that's what all of this is about, giving yourself that choice to be.
On purpose.
On purpose. Thank you. You got any questions? Go for it.
A long time ago, I learned what I can't live with, not what I can live with.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so empowering.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely, and I do think that we live in a society that is so one-sided, Oh, just look at this. Oh, just look at, this one side of things. But yeah, there's just so much more to the world. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Okay, Joshua does this for, I think he's our local Joe Dispenza. Honestly, you're so amazing, honestly. Yeah. And
I'll have to look him up.
he, what? That's okay.
should.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. You're amazing. And he has Zen Remedy, and
Yeah.
he does this for a, he will help you.
That's
So
right.
if you have any bumps in your life,
Well, that's essentially it. I work with the issues in your tissues, the pain in the brain, and the hurt in your heart.
Say that again.
And the issues in the tissues, the pain in the brain, and the hurt in the heart. I have psycho and physical therapies that we use to help you bring balance. But the most important part is that for me, you're not going to get positions. You're not going to get the this is what you have to do. I'm going to teach you all the principles of the Jedi Masters. And then you got it in yourself that you're going to be able to move with this principle and make magic in your own life. And so, yeah, I'm available via the phone, personal meetings, massage therapy, and real soon we're going to have a members area online, and it's going to start at $33.33 a month. So get ready for that.
wow. And he's part of the Adam community, which is so awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Joshua.